The vote was taken. The board had decided. He was out, fired. Not from a company he had just joined, not from a company he had worked at for years, from the company he had built, from the company that bore his vision, his obsession, his entire identity. He was 30 years old, and the people he had trusted, the people he had brought in to help him build his dream, had just shown him the door. What would you do if the thing you built, the thing you gave everything to, rejected you? Stay with me, because what happened next is the most important part of this story. Subscribe to this channel right now, because every Monday and Thursday we tell the stories that remind you who you are. Like this video, share it with someone who has just been knocked down. This story is for them. I am Dr. TJ, a Harvard Fellowship trained surgeon and a distinguished Toastmaster. The highest honor in Toastmasters International, earned by less than 1% of members worldwide. And everything I am about to share with you comes from decades of real-world experience at the highest levels. He was born in San Francisco in 1955, adopted as an infant by Paul and Clara Jobs. From childhood, he was different, not gifted in the conventional sense. Difficult, some said, intense, impossibly demanding of everyone around him, but possessed a vision so clear, so total, that it bordered on the frightening. He saw things other people didn't see. He saw what technology could be, not what it was. In 1976, in a garage in Los Altos, California, he and his partner built something, a personal computer, not for governments, not for corporations, for people. The idea seemed absurd at that time. Why would ordinary people want a computer? He knew why. Because he already lived in the world that was coming. He just had to build it. By 1984, the company he had co-founded had changed the world. The Macintosh, the graphical interface, the mouse. He was 29 years old, and he was already a legend. And then the board voted. The conflict with the CEO he had hired, John Scully, had been building for months. They disagreed on everything: direction, culture, vision, the soul of the company. In May 1985, the board sided with Scully. He was stripped of his responsibilities. Then he resigned, walked out of the company he had built from nothing. He later said it felt like being punched in the stomach. He was publicly humiliated. The press wrote his obituary, professionally speaking. Silicon Valley moved on. He was 30 years old with $500 million and nothing left to prove. He could have stopped. He could have retired to an island. He could have let the rejection become the end of the story. Instead, he did the only thing he knew how to do. He started again. He founded a new company next. He invested in a small animation studio that everyone thought was a distraction. He kept building. He kept seeing the world that was coming. and he kept working in the quiet while the world forgot about him. In 1996, Apple was dying. The company had lost its way completely. In an act of desperation, they acquired Next, and with it, they got back the one thing they had voted out 11 years earlier: him. He returned as CEO in 1997. Apple had 90 days of cash left, 90 days from bankruptcy. What happened next is the greatest corporate comeback in history. The iMac, the iPod, the iTunes, the iPhone, the iPad, the App Store. He didn't just save Apple, he made it the most valuable company on earth. The company that had fired him became worth over $3 trillion under his vision. His name was, yes, you guessed it, Steve Jobs. The man the board fired at 30. The man Silicon Valley wrote off. The man who returned 11 years later and built the device that is probably in your pocket right now. He once said, "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that ever happened to me." The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. Here are 3 quotations from Steve Jobs. The first: "Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again." End quote, Steve Jobs. The second quote: "Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work." End quote, Steve Jobs. The third and last: "Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life." End quote, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was fired at 30. He spent 11 years in the wilderness, and he came back and changed the world. Here is your challenge. Write down the rejection that still stings, the door that closed, the opportunity that didn't come, the position you didn't get. Write it down, and then write this question next to it: what did this free me to become? Because sometimes the door that closes is not a punishment, it is a redirection. Steve Jobs needed 11 years to understand that. You might need less, but the question is worth asking right now. What did this free me to become? Share this with someone who has just been fired, rejected, or pushed out of something they built. They need this story today. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, and come back Thursday for a story about what the greatest athletes in history do the day after they fail.
You are unstoppable.